It's the perfect picture postcard. The historic Grand Hotel on beautiful Mackinac Island. For decades now, it's become the spring meeting retreat for the Detroit Regional Chamber's annual Mackinac Policy Conference. What gets discussed and debated here has impact to varying degrees back home. Come with us as we show you why this has become a must-attend annual event. It's Sunday, June the 11th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is a Spotlight on the News Mackinac Special. Mr. Superintendent, you just coming in, got a lot on your plate, I know. What are your priorities?
Priorities right now is engagement, talking to internal and external stakeholders about what's working, what's not, what we can do differently. It's an opportunity for me to understand from people directly what we need to do to make this a world-class school district. Early on will be to develop a strategic plan for the district. I think Alicia and her team did a great job on the academic plan, so we're going to build off of that and infuse it into a strategic plan that guide the work of the district. And then the other short-term goals is to focus on our teacher vacancy challenge, making sure that we're as close to being fully staffed as possible by the beginning of the year. How
do you feel you can best help him and the district achieve the goals that the superintendent just talked about? Is this going to be a solid 1-2 team here?
Well, first of all, let me just be very clear that during my time as interim superintendent, I feel that I was given a task to do, and I think I did it well. And we brought stability and built trust in the district and brought us to a point where now we can go to the next level with Dr. Vitti. And I feel very strongly about that. And while I appreciate people's support, because what that means is they felt that I did a good job. We are working very well together, and I have committed to making sure that this transition is as seamless as possible. I did not work 7 days a week, 18 to 21 hours a day for the last 14 months to contribute to anything but moving this district forward.
The Michigan Citizens Research Council just put out a report saying that you're starting off with a surplus, and whether or not it stays that way is going to depend on what kind of stewards you guys are going to be. Your reaction to the report?
One opportunity that we have with the dollars that we have right now in surplus is to create a defined reserve. And I think every organization needs a defined reserve. So one strategy that I will be offering to the school board and the Financial Review Commission is to stabilize and with the defined reserve, to create a defined reserve, to say that certain percentage is here. It's an actual savings account that stays permanent and protected.
Keep your hands off of it.
Keep your hands off it. And that gives everyone the assurance that things that are unexpected that come out can be solved through this reserve.
What message would you send to the DFT, and what message do you send to the school board to be able to achieve the things that the superintendent just talked about?
I think just to be careful about not violating any collective bargaining agreement conditions, I will just simply say that
what advice?
Now is the time. The advice is now is the time to come up with creative solutions. And now is the time for the district, the board, superintendent, staff, everyone to work together to move this district forward.
We've had generations of adults in Detroit and Southeast Michigan in particular who our education system hasn't adequately prepared for the workforce, for adulthood, for governing ourselves as a community, those kinds of things. And it's our job as a community to continue that work to help those folks get ready. And so we've got to help folks complete high school who are adults. We've got to help returning citizens reintegrate into our community. We've got to help folks with mental illness or developmental disabilities find their way into the workforce. We've got to help veterans who are returning to our community find their way into our workforce. And that way, the mayor's goal of 40,000 people, 40,000 folks entering the workforce actually has a chance of happening.
You're back again this year, and you're talking about the university corridors and their investment in this state. I'm going to start with you. You're the senior member of this group, and we're going to go right down the line.
Well, I think the data from the benchmarking report would suggest that 1 in 8 jobs in healthcare are a very important life sciences corridor. The economic benefit of the state from the research university has been extraordinary. And what we want to make sure of is that the intellectual infrastructure that will move us to the 21st century in life sciences will be sustained over a long period of time through our efforts and those of the state.
So we have $16.5 billion of collective economic impact on the state of Michigan amongst our 3 universities, and that's a 19-fold return on investment from the state funding. So we are very important for the state's economy. Each year we do a sector report. So in the past we've looked at the impact of our universities on Detroit, we've looked at the blue economy, the water economy, we've looked at automotives, IT, alternative energy. This year we focused hard on the life, medical, and health sciences, where between the 3 of our universities we're doing $1.2 billion of research every year. We're spawning new companies and we're training more healthcare professionals than any group of universities in the country. And we'd like to continue the investment in those things, hopefully with more partnership from the state.
You know, Wayne State is very focused on health disparities, looking at the problems that particularly affect the urban population in Detroit, seeing what we can do with respect to our research to have an impact on those conditions that disproportionately affect the residents of Detroit and other urban populations such as obesity and diabetes and certain heart disease, asthma, perinatal health and infant mortality, those kinds of things. But the strength of this report really is that the 3 of us have different areas that we really are strong in, and the 3 of us together complement each other, and it makes it competitive, one of the best in I think, the country.
Campus sexual assault violence. How did this become such a passion for you?
Well, I think it really started when my daughter, our youngest daughter, started school several years ago, and she became an advocate for her sorority, that girls could come and talk to her to get advice if they'd been sexually assaulted. And when she told me that in the first couple of weeks of school, she'd already had 3 girls, I was just appalled. And so I started to delve deeper into it, and I was just shell-shocked at what we found out. And we need to make our campuses safe. I mean, this is their home away from home, the students. And how prevalent this is just terrific.
Well, we've been a 2-time grant recipient and have been able to do some programming, like the First Lady said, around vulnerable students, understanding that there are things to avoid on college campuses, there are things to know, people to know. What does a Title IX officer do? What does a college counselor do? And we've used those grant dollars to put together a series of very good programs for our students. The next step we thought was to be able to be a summit partner. And the First Lady was kind enough to say, well, come take a look, see what it would look like to do it at Easter, and we're delighted to do it on September 25th.
A lot is going to focus on the gentleman part of it. And, you know, because they always talk about the victims, and I just found out recently that these victims can get PPOs, personal protection orders, and a lot of people don't know that. I mean, because it happens all too often that their perpetrator is living next door or in their same class or what have you, and the victim is having to not go to class, not go outside. That's not fair.
How can men and women rally around their friends, around their colleagues, around the other students in their class to say, how can I help you? If this happened, how can I help you with reporting? How can I help you through your trauma? And I think we're seeing good progress there.
And we're developing a handbook. That's our new thing this year. We've got a whole group, a work group that's going to be announced in a couple weeks, comprised of different individuals from around the community, and it's going to be full of resources to hand out at the summit.
Your husband loves to talk about relentless positive action. Does the First Lady feel this is another form of relentless positive action for Michigan and making Michigan the leader in this area as well?
Absolutely. We are the only state in the nation that allocates general budget dollars to this particular cause. And this year we're hoping to get $600,000. In the last 2 years we've got $500,000 for grants. So we're going up and we're going big.
When Spotlight returns, we'll talk about economic opportunity. We'll be right back.
The first few years when we were here, we were coming out of the crisis, and then we knew we were going to deal with the bankruptcy of Detroit. And now we've got some confidence and some success.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about what are the next set of things we're going to have to do to really push the state and the city forward.
What concerns you the most as you look at the renaissance we're going through?
Talent. Number one thing that I'm concerned about is talent. We have our educational achievement as a state is 34th in the nation, and our per capita income is 33rd. Those numbers are tightly locked for a reason, and so if we're really going to be successful, everybody needs to be able to play on the economic playing field, and so we need to develop and educate our citizens.
Well, I'm really hoping that everybody here takes home one good idea that they can communicate to the people back in Detroit or Grand Rapids or Marquette or wherever they happen to be coming from. The state is on the right trajectory. I think there's a lot of work to do, but I do think this conference really serves to put a fine spotlight on what needs to get done.
We believe that some of the reimbursement for drug costs, for example, we still see that some of our patients who really need access to drugs are not able to get it. Some of that in part due to the escalating costs and some of it due to plan design. We certainly have no crystal ball, but I would say that our point of view is that we need to do what's right, first and foremost. And so then whatever the political debate ends up, as long as we're focused on patient care, quality, and safety, and doing what's right for those that we care for in our communities, we'll be in the best position to weather the storm.
So we have a great training facility in Warren, 60,000 square foot facility where we train apprentices in a variety of classifications. Plus, we also keep our journeymen up to date on all the changes in our technology.
We've got some great programs going on right now. We have a pre-apprenticeship, which is opening up opportunities for maybe kids that normally wouldn't qualify to get in the apprenticeship program. We run them through a pre-apprenticeship. We give them a great opportunity to get into the program.
At Detroit Future City, we're releasing a series of special reports to help people understand and really try to go in depth more about the core issues that are facing Detroit neighborhoods. And we really feel that we have to be able to understand what's happening in the neighborhoods now in order to get to the Detroit Future City 50-year vision. And one of the things we discovered was, in fact, the number of vacant industrial sites.
How many?
900.
That's a whopping number.
891 to be exact.
Okay.
So it's a real issue. I mean, that has to
be able to crack down on them.
Yeah.
And we don't have that, is what you're saying?
Well, we don't really have that for commercial and industrial the same way we have it for residential.
I really fundamentally believe that cities rise and fall together, and that we need strong cities throughout the entire state. If our state's going to be strong, our cities need to be strong, and that's particularly true for the two largest cities in the state, Detroit and Grand Rapids.
You have a good relationship with Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan.
I do. So, in fact, Mayor Duggan and I just recently met with business leaders from Michigan, and we were talking about, what are the great things happening in our cities, what are our challenges, and what can we do to work together to make sure that cities are supported, especially at the state level.
Unfortunately, through the budget cycle this term, we have seen zero put towards infrastructure, and the governor recommended $20 million for the infrastructure fund. The Senate actually zeroed that out, and the House put in $5 million. But we're hopeful that the legislature can come back and actually increase the governor's recommendation to maybe $100 million for the infrastructure fund. We're spending about 6.5% of our general fund money for infrastructure overall. Most states are spending 10 to 12% of their overall budget, and so it's no wonder why Michigan's infrastructure is failing.
Coming up on Spotlight, political civility.
I want good common sense solutions for our state. And I appreciate people having differences of opinion. And I'm always going to apply relentless positive action. I'm not going to get into fighting or blame. How can we solve problems that exist together? The legislature is a good example. I think they're also concerned about some of the things I am, about making sure we manage risk to our taxpayers and still have good plans for our school employees. How that gets approached can be different, but let's talk through it. Let's come up with solutions that are good for people.
I am committed, along with my good partner in the Senate, Arlen Niekoff, to finishing this budget in June. We're going to continue to work on that over
Will
the next
you
couple
make budget on time?
The House and Senate, we will. We are going to get this thing wrapped up.
With or without the governor?
We are going to do it with or without him. We are going to get this thing done. We are going to do our work in the House and the Senate. We can have healthy disagreements. We can debate the issues, but we need to make certain that we do so in a respectful way, and that's what we've done over the past 5 or 6 months.
Well, it's been a really strange budget process. We have some extra dollars this year, and where you would have thought the immediate reaction would be, let's put that money back into classrooms, let's put that money back into the roads. We've had a variety of different priorities from the legislative Republicans, and so as Democrats, we've made it very clear that we'll work with anybody, the governor, the legislature, but we want to make sure more money are going to the roads because that's what the citizens are really asking for.
They're also bumping heads over teachers and pensions. Your priority list of what you feel this is negotiable, but this is not negotiable.
One of the things that they're talking about is closing the teacher pension system, and one of the things that I always go to is show me the numbers. And so the House Fiscal Agency has done analysis, the governor's treasurer has done analysis, the Office of Retirement Services, and every one of them comes back and says, you know, the system is working.
When our schools are dead last in our own country, when we've still got enormous employment challenges, yeah, the unemployment rate's gone down, there's more people in minimum wage paying jobs. That's not how you rebuild an economy. And we still have a city that can't turn on their water and drink it. The most important thing that I can do is to make sure that I'm building a platform that people in the state see is going to benefit them. And that's why all this work that I'm doing this early is so important.
I want to be part of the mosaic of Michigan's future. I want to be part of where we drive our state to have more jobs. And I have one ambition, Chuck. I have one ambition, and that is that Michigan be a growth state, a top 10 state. I want Michigan to be a job state. And the best way to do that is to make sure we have a jobs governor leading the Republican Party in 2018.
What is it America's feeling right now?
I think America is desperate to figure out how to reunite. I actually don't buy into this divisiveness. Maybe I'm an eternal optimist, a hopeless optimist. Well, that's not fair, but. So I've done a project called Bring It to the Table, and the whole idea behind the project is that we need to learn how to have conversations again.
How do we do that?
We got to do it by approaching a conversation with your hands and your heart open. Mm-hmm. And you got to approach it saying, I want to understand you. I want to understand what you believe and why you believe it. And we don't do that. We go into a conversation ready to prove what we know, what we think. So what I am urging people to do, and I'm traveling all over the country with Bring It to the Table, is to say, you've got to learn how to listen. You've got to learn how to be a better version of yourself. You've got to learn how to be a better citizen. And you can't point fingers and say, those people are the problem. You've got to take charge of the only thing you are in charge of, and that's you. And are you that version of a citizen you would like to be?
And what has been your response as you've talked to the various people that you've encountered?
Well, I find that if you're actually willing to listen to people, they are eager to talk. They're eager to share. And
they want it to be a two-way street, not a one-way street.
Exactly, exactly. And if you don't agree with somebody, the least successful thing you can do is say you're wrong, right? You're never going to convince somebody else about what you believe by attacking
if they
what
feel
they
you've
believe.
Already made up your mind.
Exactly. So that's really like I'm on this mission to get people to take responsibility, personal responsibility, because we got to change what's happening.
Sounds like what we have to do is learn how to agree to disagree.
Exactly.
All right.
Disagree, not disrespect.
When Spotlight returns, we'll talk about connecting technology.
We're going to be living in a highly connected world that will be changing our world pretty dramatically, but certainly for us here in Michigan, it's about self-driving vehicles, which will be the future of the auto industry, and I want to make sure that stays here in our state. It's an opportunity for us to be both on the commercial side and on the military side. Really uniquely positions Michigan at the center of all of this activity.
Realistically looking at it, I think we have an awful lot going in our favor right now. If you look at the wonderful people that we have, the a wonderful infrastructure there at Selfridge that's robust and resilient, and we have the best training airspace and ranges this side of the Mississippi River. I think Selfridge is the logical choice for the F-35 for the future.
What's the biggest thing working against us in this competition?
Well, you never know how politics plays out. So it's the unknown unknowns, I think, that are probably the biggest thing that I worry about at this point in time. I hope that it's just a nice, straightforward competition, and I think we're simply going to blow everybody else out of the water. We are the best.
And finally on Spotlight, one of Michigan's bread and butters, tourism.
Michigan is a destination state. No one's driving through Michigan to go somewhere. If you are coming to Michigan, it's because you are drawn to it, you've heard about it, perhaps you've seen an ad. And I think it's important that we identify that the summers are the main time that we have tourism in the state. We need to make sure that we protect our summers. We need to ensure that families have the opportunity to drive around our state and to see its natural beauty. So that's something that we certainly want to protect in the legislature, and tourism is something that's vitally important, not just to the state, but certainly to my district and my constituents. So we want to make sure that it's protected.
40 million people get their drinking water from the Great Lakes, not counting the economic impact of boating and fishing and hunting, agriculture, and the importance of clean water. Tens of thousands of jobs. And when the administration says, and the budget director says, this is a local issue, I want to take him to the edge of Lake Huron to look across at Canada. It's absurd that this national resource would not get the funding to protect it.
But talk about the importance of this conference to the hotel, obviously to the bottom line, but also to the image in terms of what you're trying to get across to the rest of the world.
Economically, this is our single largest customer. And particularly it happened at the beginning of the year that after a long winter of not being open but still having bills to pay and payroll to cover, it's much appreciated. And most significantly is up on the 4th floor. We're almost complete with our Cupola Suites addition.
25 years from now, what do you predict for the Grand Hotel?
Well, I hope more of the same. You brought the fact we try to improve every year. Hopefully we're still doing that, both the amenities we serve, the way that we serve our guests, and the food, and the way that we present it and serve it.
Special thanks to the Detroit Regional Chamber and the historic Grand Hotel. From Mackinac Island, Michigan, I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the Spotlight. We hope you have a great week. Our dialogue about the future of Southeast Michigan will continue this Tuesday, June 13th in Taylor, where my colleague Carolyn Clifford will host a Detroit 2020 Town Hall meeting to see what's on your mind. Doors open at 6 p.m. Please join us.